Good.
Hey everybody, we're live on YouTube. Dion and I were we've been talking for a bunch of minutes already, and so I was like, we just got to go live and continue this conversation. This is Dion from Loda Finance. We're going to get into it in just a few minutes. Hi, my name's Andy Boyan. If I haven't met you before, now we have met. But so we're going to get into Loda in just a few minutes. But we were just talking about kind of comparing NFTs and what they've done for crypto and DeFi compared to what DeFi did. And something you just said is, when DeFi kind of blew up, it got all these finance people really excited to come into the space, but you were a little dismissive of that. And I want to push back on you and say, that is still a killer use case. Like to have this, niche segment of people who really understand a particular industry, finance, come in and use decentralized projects. That's incredibly valuable. The same is true for NFTs and communities and DAOs and art. Like it's a different community maybe, or there's some overlap, but that's still an incredibly powerful thing, and both are really powerful use cases.
Yeah, for sure. No, I certainly wasn't being dismissive of people in traditional finance or even people in crypto finance. I mean, at the end of the day, I am a DeFi participant, and that's sort of my core thing that I'm about. I think probably the tone that you picked up is that because I am so surrounded by people who are finance professionals, and they're in the chat groups, that they're the people that I speak to 15 hours a day, is that this sort of boom of explosion and this boom of excitement and experimentation in DeFi summer last year, like really felt like the Pandora's box had exploded, and it did, undoubtedly, like the yield farming booms, and moving from pools to pools, and people getting wrecked on gas fees, and Uniswap deciding to airdrop and basically shutting down the whole Ethereum network, and people couldn't get out of contracts, and all that stuff was so wild and so exciting. And I think that my comment was more related to the fact that when this sort of NFT boom started, a lot of those people, certainly what I saw, were a little bit dismissive, that like NFTs weren't as serious, or they, it wasn't a true mechanism or a true financial mechanism in the same way that, like generating sort of interesting yields were. But I think that what the NFT sort of summer and the NFT booms really proved is that it's just brought in so many people who are not necessarily financially related, and people who aren't looking for yield, or don't know what yield is, or the fact
so in DeFi,
yield alone isn't exciting enough.
Yield is exciting, but like I peaked out at some point in DeFi where, like, okay, I understand swaps and I understand decentralized swaps and I understand yield, but eventually, like, compounding hedges versus a perpetual swap
and automatic market makers and impermanent loss, and and all this stuff is
I can't do that, but I can go look at an NFT community and see it. Well, there's activity in that community. That's exciting. They're rallying around this cool functionality, right? We were just talking about like tickets to a community, a ticketing sort of mechanism. It was accessible, and I'm a relatively smart guy. I'm not ashamed to say that, but like accessible, and that access plus digital art, it looks cool, and it's something that you can display, leads to this. Oh, well, we can bring even more people in. And that's kind of the difference I saw is DeFi, amazing and incredible value, and incredibly important subset of the crypto ecosystem, but NFTs, yet another one, a whole new audience, whole new set of composable components, all that.
100%. And I can't say it enough. Like, I'm so long DeFi, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm the most bullish person. I'm the most bullish person on DeFi and CeDeFi there is, really. So, but I just more mean, we started this conversation because you're wearing an NFT jumper, but yeah, I just think it's very, very interesting, the layers and the sort of the segments of people that are coming in, and the way people are coming in, and the unique wallet addresses that are just exploding, and not just exploding on Ethereum, but exploding on all the layer twos, and exploding on, like I saw today, I think that there's more unique wallet addresses on Polygon than on Ethereum for the first time ever, which is just crazy, because most people who know what Polygon is, or know what layer twos are, know that it's a layer two of Ethereum. So to think that a layer two of Ethereum is actually getting more unique wallet adoption than a layer one, it's just interesting as a concept. And that's before you even start talking about all the other layer ones like Solana and Dot and Algorand and Luna, and it's just amazing. And I think that I think that NFTs have come at a good time, not just for the space, but also at a really good time for the technology. You know, they've come at a time when these layer ones are not just a forethought; they're here and they're working, and there's real traction and real volume going through them. And yeah, it just feels like an incredibly fun time to be entering the space. You know.
Yeah, welcome. And so welcome to everyone. If you're not a regular viewer of Chainlink Live, we talk to founders all the time. Really excited to talk to Dion about Loda. Let's get it started and properly so I can learn a little bit about Loda as well. We'll come back and talk about NFTs because I just like to chat about them later on. But it is Chainlink Live. Welcome to Chainlink Live. My name is Andy Boyan from Chainlink Labs. I'm talking to Dion Dalton Bridges from Loda. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm really good, and I mean it's midnight here, but I'm glad to be here, and I'm stoked that you're having me. So
I told Dion I might be a few minutes late. I wasn't, but he told me no worries. He gave me like a legit Australian sort of thing. It feels good to like I felt authentic there. Anyways, it's awesome to meet you, man. We've already been chatting a little bit about the space, but let's dive into Loda. And what is Loda? What makes it special? Give us kind of your elevator pitch and top level stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So and also just off the top, yeah, we do actually speak like that. So no worries, was quite legitimate. But Loda is two things actually. Loda is actually a collateralized and an uncollateralized product. So today we'll probably be focusing more on the collateralized product, but Loda is actually sort of a two-headed dragon, so to speak. But for the purposes of today, Loda is a collateralized lending product which allows people to use crypto as collateral and borrow Australian dollars. And yeah, that's not a mechanism that exists in Australia at the moment. And it's not revolutionary in the global scale of things, but it's something that's really important to, I think, all crypto ecosystems. And it's something that I believe the Australian market really needs, both for new participants and existing crypto holders.
Well, I've just been learning a bit about CBDCs, and in particular, like a Euro CBDC is just where my research has gone recently.
Yeah.
And you know, this idea of having regionally native or fenced native currencies as part of the crypto conversation and DeFi conversation is really important. Like people don't want to be beholden to another country's monetary policy for whatever reason it may be. When it comes down in Australia, people get paid in Australian dollars, right?
Yeah. Generally speaking, that's
so
what they
like
get paid in.
you have to convert everything to US dollars, or for stable coins to participate in DeFi, it adds these additional hurdles.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, those hurdles undoubtedly exist, and there are some legitimate projects that are actually looking into minting a lot of other stables, and there are a lot of projects looking into the FX problems as well, because obviously crypto natively solves a lot of FX problems just with, around the fact that, borderless transactions. So that's sort of the central use case. So I think that, those barriers that do exist are becoming much smaller moving between currencies. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're totally right. Right now, the legal tender of Australia is AUD, and I can't see that changing for a long time. So whether people are holding crypto and need access to cash, or whether people are, looking to buy an asset and want more utility than just price exposure, people are going to need money, access to the legal tender of the country they're in. So, fiat money is incredibly important, regardless of no matter how bullish you are on crypto.
One of the things I was wondering about for Loda, who are your core users? Like, what do you foresee? We were talking about finance people who really get DeFi as well, but are there sort of these crypto native people who want to get access to funds? They stake their ETH or whatever it happens to be, so they can get their dollars, or what do you sort of see as kind of your top couple of use cases?
Yeah, totally. So I mean, again, for the collateralized product, which is obviously one of two of our products, the use cases, I mean, the most obvious and initial use case is people that currently hold crypto and don't want to sell because they're they're intrinsically bullish, but they still need to live. So, the most obvious use case are people that have been holding for a long time and now, potentially have done well. I mean, generally speaking, and statistically speaking, anyone who's been holding for any longer than, probably 12 months is in profit. And in some cases, large profits, but without selling that asset, they can still be, asset wealthy and potentially cash poor. So the most obvious use case is giving people an ability to either hedge their assets into other performing assets, or to actually just get access to credit lines so that they can then go and to buy houses or boats or skateboards or whatever they want to buy. So at the end of the day, it's just, in its simplest form, it's introducing a new collateral, a collateral that's hasn't existed, and that in itself is very, very interesting when you actually sort of think about it in a more broad sense. But in a really narrow sense, anyone who holds crypto should be very excited about this, because there's nowhere else in Australia, under our regulations, that can borrow Australian dollars. And for people that don't hold crypto, it's exciting as well, because, or it should be, because they can enter this new market, and then it's not just a dead asset where they're hoping it goes up or it goes down. They can immediately borrow against it. And as I said earlier, they can hedge against their collateral, or they can look to, they can look to create further credit lines or further leverage, or do whatever they want to do. But the asset is productive. It's not just dormant and reliant completely on price exposure.
I think this is one of those things we were talking about, like comparing DeFi to NFTs, and DeFi like reached this peak of sexiness, basically. Like if we talk about access to collateralization capability, like it's just a tune out phrase. It's really cool. When you think about like permissionless, or essentially not fully permissionless, but like this idea of people with this asset can now use it as collateral to get liquid funds to be able to engage in whatever economic activity. That's a new sort of paradigm that has kind of been enabled by these crypto collateralization and products that like Loda's doing. It's hard to explain that as sexy as like, look at this cool punk or whatever it happens to be. But really that sort of access to collateralization at a lot of different levels, like that's, previously been gated and only for people of a certain asset level, because it just isn't practical to do it, at below a certain asset level.
Well, the other thing that's really interesting as well, and this is sort of a point that sort of puts people's brains in a pretzel a little bit, but is that crypto is undoubtedly the best collateral of all time, because even though crypto, and that might sound counterintuitive because crypto is volatile, but what crypto is, which neither the housing market or Rolexes or vintage cars or art is it exists in a 24-hour market. Through things like Chainlink, it has an agreed price. It is incredibly liquid, which means that, as someone who is lending money to people, or people who are looking to borrow, putting up crypto as collateral is the best form of collateral there are, because it's liquid and the price is agreed. So it's quite revolutionary in my eyes, the possibilities that it opens up. And at the end of the day, like, without getting into gold or any of those types of discussions, is one of the great sort of arguments against gold as a sort of a hedge against inflation has been that it's, you can't get a yield, you can't borrow against it, it's not good collateral, all that sort of stuff. So crypto is sort of without getting into the boring sort of things that we're alluding to, it's not only a new form of collateral, but I think undoubtedly the best form of collateral the world's ever known.
Well, no, that's a really interesting point. If I've got a chunk of Bitcoin, I can offload that and sell it way faster than I can offload and sell a house, as fast as the housing market is, or gold.
No, it's not even
who's
close.
Holding my gold? I got to move it. I got to do a bunch of stuff.
It's not even close. I mean, you need to advertise it. You need to paint it. You need to bring an agent in. You need to, do all these things to optimize the sale of your house. You need to organize an auctioneer, or you need to, selling a house is not. Houses are liquid, but they're not liquid like Bitcoin is. I mean, unless you're running one of the biggest hedge funds in the world and you're moving thousands of Bitcoins at a time, and even still, I mean, the markets are so sufficiently mature now that you could do that. But for the average person who might own a Bitcoin, or if they're lucky, maybe more than one or two Bitcoins, there is no time ever where the market can't absorb that at any time. The markets are so liquid and 24 hours a day now. For a lot of people that's obvious, but there's no other market in the world that's that is so liquid and 24 hours a day. So it's quite remarkable, and I think that we're only just beginning to even imagine the utility that that using crypto as collateral can offer, not just for crypto participants, but for the way the whole global financial system works.
As money comes into crypto, like you see that total, industry market cap go up. As each asset, sort of creeps up. That's liquidity. That's additional liquidity, which means additional ability to trade for a lot of these assets. So it's not just Bitcoin. Now it's ETH as well, and some other things. So one of the questions that I thought of is, how do you guys select collateral that you'll accept? Like, what's kind of the process that you go through? This wasn't on the questions we kind of talked about earlier. Sorry,
Yeah,
but it's just something that kind of jumped in. What are some of those factors that you take into account?
Yeah, good question. So basically, as a borrower, as a lender, we need to custody assets. So, as part of what we do is, we're likely to go and then use those assets as liquidity somewhere else, in order to generate yield as well. So, the assets that generally are good collateral for us are the same that are good in other markets, meaning that assets that people want to borrow. So whether they be trusted hedge funds or trusted exchanges, and it all feeds back into this liquidity loop that we're talking about, and playing a part, and Loda is no different. We're a participant in that sort of liquidity loop to ensure that exactly that the markets are liquid, and also that participants in those markets are able to sort of generate yield.
We talk about kind of the flywheel of utility. Like, once an asset is kind of adopted and accepted, then liquidity rises, and once there's more liquidity, then it's adopted even more. Like, it has this kind of effect. Bitcoin certainly has reached that for sure. ETH, maybe is coming there as well. It certainly seems to be pretty liquid and on many exchanges as well. One of the questions: how are you? The reason we're talking to you guys integrated Chainlink Price Feeds. How are you using Chainlink in Loda?
To be honest, Chainlink is not even, if I'm really honest, it's not even something that I thought would be a good use case for the first product, because I didn't realize that Chainlink could be used in a way that for like a custodial product, whereby we're not it's not a purely our version 1 collateralized product is not completely on chain. It has a custodial element to it, and so I didn't actually even realize the use case until I was some Chainlink guys reached out to me, and I chatted to them. And basically, Chainlink's so helpful to us because it removes it basically, when you issue a loan using crypto as collateral, you have to have an agreed price point for what that collateral is worth. Now, if we had bad intentions, or we were a lender that had bad intentions, we could be, disingenuous with that price, and you have to trust us. Whereas by completely removing that onus of responsibility in terms of like dictating the price of the asset, it just adds it decentralizes the actual, the price feeds. We're now able to use tamper-proof price feeds. It also plays into the fact of monitoring the debt health between the collateral and what's been lent out. And so it just brings like a real tamper-proof, transparent element to the whole business, which is just great for us, because it means that our users can know that they're getting a fair price for their assets. They're getting a fair price in terms of both issuing the loan, but also in terms of monitoring the health of those loans, that they know that not only is it a decentralized, tamper-proof price feed, but it's coming from Chainlink, who people at this point really understand is an integral sort of player in the whole ecosystem. And a big, for Chainlink people, it's very obvious, but for people who are not, I guess, Chainlink aficionados, like smart contracts can't, reach out to the world. They need information to be fed to them. So, the Chainlink's a massive help to us, because it removes any sort of issues around transparency or tamper-proof price feeds or anything like that.
So when you're doing that collateralization, you're given like a specific price of Bitcoin or ETH, whatever happens
at that time. Yeah. So we have
right at that time.
that. Yeah, correct. So we have to be able to say at this time your collateral is worth this much, and therefore you're able to loan this much. And so that obviously changes over time, which means that you can borrow more money, or in some cases you might have to pay back more money, or whatever it might be in terms of managing.
There's this core question though, like what's the price of Bitcoin? And if you go and you look right now at the top 5 leading exchanges, there'll be slightly different prices. They're not all going to be exactly the same. Different markets trade at different rates. If you go look at decentralized exchanges, it'll be slightly different for wrapped Bitcoin than it will be on Binance or whatever exchange you're using. And so where you're getting your data actually matters, and how do you determine what that is really does matter, especially when it comes to I'm going to deposit this and get a rate. Is that rate fair? Do I just got to trust you that you chose the one that is the closest to accurate, or you can use a decentralized price feed that aggregates hundreds essentially of exchanges through dozens of data providers and get a good feed. So that's an awesome use case. I'm really glad to hear you guys adopted that as well. I do have a question from the community as well, from Smoked Meat Box. I love these usernames. How do you manage the mark to market through the life cycle of the loan? Does that apply here?
I'm not really sure. Is Smokebox there? Ask him to maybe clarify, what does he mean? How do you manage the mark to market through the lifestyle of the loan? So I think what he's probably talking about is the mark where we actually start the loan from, whereby, and then what happens from there. So if that's correct, basically a mark is obviously made when the loan begins. And then from there, that health of the loan needs to be obviously managed. So in the event that the collateral goes up, which, as crypto holders, we all hope that's the case, but it can't always be the case. If that's the case, it basically just means that your loan gets healthier and healthier and healthier, because you're effectively borrowing the same amount against collateral that's worth more money. In the event that it goes the other way, we only, the maximum loans we do is up to a 50% LVR, which means we will lend 50% of the collateral that's put forward. So there's quite a lot of room for the crypto to move down before the loan gets into any danger. But if the loan does deteriorate, and it deteriorates sufficiently, we have to be in communication with the users that they either need to pay back some of the loan, or they need to top up some of the collateral just to maintain that healthy that rate. So if I have interpreted the question correctly, that's how we manage that relationship.
Great. And sorry, I'm just checking out these comments. Thank you, Dion. What's the response you're getting? You've got crypto holders coming in. There's a lot of DeFi sort of permissionless situations where people can just kind of enter. We've got now Loda and other sort of regulated and KYC entities. What's sort of the rub between those two things? How do those things get along, and how are people reconciling those?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I mean, you look at places like, I guess Aave, and even places like Alchemex, and I mean, there's infinite places that people can borrow stable coins really quickly and permissionlessly, and all these types of things. And I think all of those apps are incredible. I think, though, at the end of the day, there's even if you're borrowing stable coins, generally, if you're borrowing stable coins, you're looking to put them into another DeFi asset, into another DeFi protocol. So you might deposit a collateral somewhere, borrow stable coins, and then put it into another DeFi play. And that's great, because, there's lots of really, really profitable opportunities to do that. I think, though, that the difference with what we're doing and what other places that are doing that are actually lending fiat is that it's allowing people to actually hedge into, traditional finance, and actually then, access liquidity without selling, and then, moving into another financial sector where they can either be, depending on how they look at it, they're either buying things that they need, like moving into a house, or they are, if they're purely playing markets, they might be looking to hedge that crypto position by using their crypto position. So
that's a unique element there. When I think about other investment opportunities that aren't crypto, like they don't always accept crypto. So
Yeah.
what do you do? Well, you still want to maintain your exposure to crypto. So there's some other at least options you have there, and that's what a lot of this market is about: is giving people options on the tools that they use and the products they use.
And I hope, honestly, I hope that it gets to a point where stable coins are used everywhere. Like I think stable coins are fantastic. So, but it's just a matter of us slowly getting there. And I think that, CeFi, DeFi, that sort of, that corridor between the two is actually really integral and really important, because, a lot of the DeFi protocols that exist are amazing, but and the experimentation that's allowed to happen has just been simply incredible. But it's the barrier is still quite high for people. Like I've tried to explain to so many of my friends that, who want to do things. I'm like, well, you need to get MetaMask, and then you need to buy Ethereum, and then you need to go to Uniswap, and then you need to go here, and then you need to, match your assets. And, the barrier to entry is still quite high. So I think that having that sort of CeFi front end, which allows people to basically participate without needing to basically become DeFi native, is going to be a really, really important segment of just getting more just more money and more participation into the space. And I don't think that's a future gazing statement. I think that we're already seeing that like quite evidently.
Here's my hot take. It's not that hot, but in the past year, the industry has onboarded more user experience people and user experience research people who have been figuring out, like, how do people find out about products? Where do they go first? Like, what's their journey essentially? And crypto's never really done that appropriately. Or if they have, it's been like for very specific products, exchanges and things like that. Now that's starting to happen more broadly. Like, what happens when somebody hears about some NFT project and then moves through, and do that. So I think we'll continue to see refinement on that coming up in the future. I have two more questions for you. One has nothing to do with crypto, awesome. but the first, like, what's coming up on Loda on the roadmap? Tell us kind of where you guys are going in the next couple of weeks and months.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, as I said at the top, like Loda is actually sort of a collateralized and an uncollateralized product, and the collateralized product, which we've been talking about, it's amazing and has a lot of really, really big benefits in terms of real life stuff. But we're also building an uncollateralized solution, so to allowing people to borrow money without putting collateral up. And that's a lot more complicated challenge, but it's also really, really exciting. And there's not too many people in the world who are actually trying to do it. So there's another really good project in Australia, and I'll give them a shout out because they're good friends of ours and they're doing great things, called Maple Finance, and they're doing something a little bit different to us, but they're still sort of in that same ballpark of what we're trying to do. And we've been working tirelessly in the background by just researching and really, really perfecting that design in the background. And we're getting really close to sort of coming out of camouflage on a lot of that stuff. And we'll be announcing sort of a token generation event and sort of how the value accrual works on that. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff. The version 1, which we've been talking about, is nearly close to launching, but in the background, we're also working on sort of introducing this whole other ecosystem and way of approaching uncollateralized loans, which we don't think has been really thought about yet. And
you keep saying uncollateralized and not like under collateralized. Is that that's pretty significant difference?
Yeah. And in some cases, it will require under collateralization, but we believe as well that the system that we are putting forward will be able to allow uncollateralized loans, or at the very least to be able to provide capital to lenders who can then provide uncollateralized loans, and not just here in Australia either. Like, we really hope that we can help provide liquidity to uncollateralized loans sort of all over the world. And that's quite a complex challenge. And
Australia's a really interesting place in terms of fintech, but you're very geofenced in terms of distance from other places, and then as well as you kind of get your own internet sort of fences that are up there. So it is a complex challenge.
Well, it is. And I mean, there's a city in Australia called Perth, which is a beautiful city. And I think it's actually considered the most isolated city on earth. And so, Australians are obviously very isolated, but I think that just creates sort of this really, I mean, I speak to a lot of investors and people like this, and some of them joke, but they're also half serious, that they have a thesis that they'll buy anything from Australia in fintech, because they just feel like there's sort of this unique, I don't know, like willing to sort of, innovate and sort of push boundaries and do things like this. So I think that we have a really, like, I wouldn't say massive community, but there's, both crypto and in fintech. I mean, yeah, I think that Australians have done, crazy, remarkably well in the last few years. And there's so many amazing projects here at the moment. And, the good thing is the community is really strong. So we're all really friendly with each other, and, we all really help each other. And yeah, it feels like a really good environment to be building in, to be honest.
I'm going to talk to you when we're done. Don't leave, because I want to talk to you about Australia some more. Okay, so hang out.
For sure.
But my other question is, I noticed you have Velvet Underground in your background there.
Yeah.
What's the best track on that album? Do you have a favorite?
Well, if I'm completely honest, this is actually a furnished apartment, so they're not actually mine. But no, I do. I actually do like the Velvet Underground. And actually, I mean, I could be really boring and just say that one that he talks about. Sorry, what's his name? The guy, the actual guy.
Well, I know Nico. I know Nico comes
exactly.
on that.
Everyone knows Nico. Yeah.
Because that album, she's so bad, but it's still such a good album.
No. Anyways, there's a couple of bangers on that album, but
Sunday Morning is a really solid jam. So if you want to pick
I'll tell you something more interesting than my favorite song from the Velvet Underground is that just before he passed away, he actually wrote he actually wrote a review of Kanye's album at the time. And I can't remember what it was. And Kanye's album had sort of been panned, and everyone said, "Oh, he's lost the plot. He's no good." And here's this guy who's like this indie rock legend,
Lou Reed.
Lou Reed, yeah. And Lou Reed wrote this thing, and he's basically like, and this is just before he died, and it was sort of like, no one gets melodies like this guy. No one he was talking about, like Kanye making, basically having like rhythm sections that made him cry. Anyway, so I went and listened to the song that he was talking about, and the bit that made him cry, I hadn't even heard it. Like, you know what I mean? It just made me realize that I'm certainly not a musician, and these guys, know so much more than I do. So Lou Reed doing a review of Kanye just before he passed away is probably my most favorite Velvet Underground moment, rather than a song. And that's probably not the right answer, but yeah.
No, that's a deep cut. That's great. I usually don't ask people their favorite Velvet Underground track on these interviews.
Fine.
All right, I don't know if that one will make it through the final edit of this, but still, that's fun. Dion, it's been awesome talking to you. Community, thank you for being here and bringing your questions as well. It's been awesome to talk DeFi, learn about Loda as well. Thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate it.
No worries, Andy. I really appreciate it. And I hope that was somewhat entertaining for someone. And yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Stick around. I'm going to put you down below and talk to these guys, but hang out for a minute. Hey guys, you can follow Loda Finance on all the channels. I've put their information down below. You can follow them on Twitter. There's Telegrams and Discords and websites and all sorts of things. Please do that. And hey, while you're joining communities, join all the Chainlink communities as well. I'm in all of them. I think I'm in all of them. I don't know. I try to be in most of them. You can come talk to me and our advocate Kevin and many more of these. Hit that like and subscribe, smash the subscribe button, because I'm a YouTuber now and I have to say that. But we do these every week. I've got one coming up tomorrow with Idle Finance, later in the week as well with a Ape-In, an NFT project on Thursday, and then a bunch more next week as well. So please hang out with me, come back to these. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming. You guys can follow me too if you want. I'm Andy Boyan on Twitter, and I'm around. Follow my podcast and all that good stuff to learn more about Chainlink. If this episode is interesting to you, please share it with friends as well. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Kevin, for hanging out and being my moderator. See you guys next time on Chainlink Live.